Hi everybody, Bearded Rogue here. I've got several things that I'm going to cover with the rest of Vlogust. I'm still not completely unpacked or recovered from Gen Con as of yet, so I went ahead and asked on Twitter for some topics to talk about, and I'm going to try and cover most of them. They were some really good ones. So expect a video on comics later on this week. But the one that really kind of caught my eye today, especially since I'm experiencing a little bit of the come down from being at Gen Con with so many people that I know and love, was to talk about moving cross country and any advice I could give for game groups. Finding game groups, establishing new game groups, that sort of thing. So, this is an interesting topic in a lot of ways. I have moved a lot since I got out of the Army until I got to Cincinnati, and that area was my home for almost a decade, and then I just recently moved to Portland this year, and I don't know if I would say that I have a game group here yet. When I lived in Orlando, I had a role-playing game group. We played board games when, not enough people showed up to role-play. And it was consistent, but it took quite some time to get it firmly established, to create an evening that we gamed on, and that was when the vast majority of us had no kids. There were no outside commitments. It was just a bunch of 20-something adults with jobs arranging get-togethers on the weekend to play role-playing games for multiple hours. I started really getting into board games in Kentucky because they just didn't have multiple hours to do anything. Like, I couldn't prep games, I couldn't sit in a game like that, I couldn't play a game, and my time became even more constrained once I became a parent. So, board games just fit better in my life than role-playing games do. And by the time I left Cincinnati, I had a weekly board game group. We met every Wednesday. We'd meet from 6-ish o'clock until the store kicked us out every Wednesday, and it was fantastic. It spurred a humongous growth in my game design life. It ended up becoming almost completely prototypes that we played during those times. Though there were several times that we broke from that, like the start of a Seafall campaign and some of the other major titles that showed up. We would revisit titles from the past that we really liked, like Automobile from Martin Wallace, and some of the other games. We played Millennium Blades once during that time, did some Sentinels, Orleans, but for the most part, it had become like a weekly prototype playtest group with the occasional published game sprinkled in, and that was fantastic. Since I've moved to Portland, I don't really have that. I think there are more gamers here in Portland, like more people that identify as gamers, more people that go to game stores and buy gamers and have collections like this. But for whatever reason, whether it's just because traffic is more heavy, gamers are busier here, the people in general that I'm hanging out with are older and have more responsibilities, like children. I haven't been able to get anything set up that's weekly. Like, almost every week I have something that happens related to gaming, but there's not like a consistent gaming group that exists here for me yet. Doesn't mean it can't, doesn't mean it won't, it just means it doesn't yet. So, when we moved to Cincinnati, it took quite a while before I could get a gaming group established. It was really when a game store opened up about 10 minutes or so away from me that I was able to really start making headway on that. And even then, that group rotated through members multiple times. while I was there. So the important thing that I can see for having a regular gaming group that exists is consistency. Have it the same time every week. Build your schedule around it. Like, I have on-call stuff that I have to do as part of my job. I make the schedule for that, however, so if I know that Wednesday nights are my gaming night, I can schedule myself to never work a Wednesday night, meaning that I can always get my regular gaming in. That worked really, really well for the past 2 years. Now that I don't have a Wednesday night thing, all of my EOC shifts are on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, or Fridays, which seems to be the only days that anybody here wants to game. I don't know why that is a thing. It just is the nature of the beast. I've been able to participate in a couple of live streams with Tiffany and Steve. I've been to a couple of playtesting type events with them. We ran a really cool event when Netter's Play came up here, and that was a lot of fun. I've had a couple of events with Matt and Alice, who live in Corvallis. They're PNW Beard and Pated on Twitter. The Kitten Clash designers is how they're, probably most of you would know them. Did PDX Age, which was a small local convention. Like, there's been gaming in my life, but there's not really a gaming group. There's not really that core group of people. I haven't had anything like that since Cincinnati. The closest I ever had otherwise was actually at BGG-Con. Myself, Chris Rollins, Maddie Christensen, Aaron Deneau, and then a few other people coming in and out were like, that was just, it felt like a core game group. Like, I could play any game on earth with those guys, and we would have a good time even if the game sucked. And if the game was good, then, you know, we could go all crazy mechanical thematical gearheads on it and discuss why it was good and have big long conversations. And, you know, in Cincinnati, that's what I got. My co-designer John, Angry Tetris, Justin, who's a playtester who doesn't get enough credit and how much of a contribution he's been to a lot of my designs, and then Eric, who also is kind of the silent one out of the group because he doesn't really have a social media presence, but he's whip crack smart and really good with valuation from his time playing CCGs, particularly Magic. He's really, really good at being able to just look at a system and tell you which things are good in that system and which things are bad in that system. And it helps me iterate really, really quickly. Justin is really good with systems as well. He's also really good with verbiage and ways to say things. And he's good at exploiting systems. He's a computer programmer. And then John is John. Like, if you've ever met John, John is like a math whiz and a really, really widely versed gamer who has a lot of experience in the hobby, has played an absolute ton of different things. Everything from the lightest of the light to the heaviest of the heavy. It's a really awesome, it was a really awesome group, like those core four and then anybody else who showed up, me and those three and anybody else. And I don't really have anything like that here. I have lots of people here that I absolutely love to death. I have lots of people here who I absolutely would love to game with every week. It's just not something that has worked out functionally or feasibly yet. So I don't really know the answer to how do you move across the country and establish a new game group yet, because I haven't done it. Like, when I went to Cincinnati, it was constantly showing up for as many gaming things as I could, and then eventually the local game store near me started a board game night every Wednesday. I went, spent most of the time playing games by myself, or with some of the other people that I had met outside of board games, and then they stopped coming, and eventually I started playing games with John and the other people who were there every week. And we just kind of fell into that pattern. And, you know, that game group kind of dissolved. The store really started pushing Magic on Wednesday nights even heavier and kind of crowded us out of table space. So a lot of the people who used to show up to that, Jason and James Nathan and all the other wonderful individuals that I got to game with in Cincinnati, started gaming in their houses instead of in the game store, and so it's really limited things. One of the other things that limits it is there's only so much gaming I can do at home. Raphael, my son, is very, very active, very, very hands-on, very much wants to be in the center of everything, and so, like, my wife and I haven't played a board game together in I don't even know how long. It's been 3 years, and he's 4, something like that. Like, I think maybe once we played we played Pandemic Legacy. We got babysitters and we played Pandemic Legacy together, and that's the only board gaming we've really done since he's been born. The only board gaming we've done together. She's done very little gaming separate. Gaming isn't really her primary hobby. I've done a lot of gaming separate from her. But it is just that. It's been separate from her. It's been outside my house. It's been at other people's houses, at conventions, at events, at board game nights, that sort of thing. My house, while I could start hosting a weekly game night, I don't know how that would work out in particular with my son. Going outside the house to game, there are several game stores in this area that are absolutely wonderful. That actually do board game nights during the week. I haven't tried to align myself with any of those to just consistently show up. My schedule here has been in a lot more flux. I'd been in Cincinnati for 9 years, so a routine had kind of set in, and now in Portland, my schedule is much more all over the place. In addition, because of the time zone change, I have to accommodate other people a little bit more, like both of my partners who I record my podcast with, Ian and Gil, are East Coast time, so there's a 3-hour time difference now, whereas before there was no time difference. A lot of the work events that I have that occur after hours fall right in the middle of the meat of the evening instead of being late at night because of the time difference. My son doesn't have consistent sitters or daycare or any of that stuff set up here at this point. So it's just, we're still working things out. I mean, we've been here since March. It's August, so that's 4 months, 5 months, and we don't have it figured out yet. I wanted to be able to make it up to Seattle, and I haven't done that yet, even though I've been here for, a quarter of a year, a third of a year at this point. Now, Origins and Gen Con definitely interrupted that quite a bit, and BGG Con in November will interrupt it some more, but it's... I've been gaming. I just don't really have a game group like I used to, and I do miss that. I miss having a group of people who I knew that we were going to get together and we were going to play games consistently at the same time. Every week, the games would change, but all of us would be the same, and we meshed really well, and our personalities worked well together, and, we could joke with each other and have fun with each other, and, know that understand each other's tastes and who was going to like what games and know what to bring and all of that stuff. And now I'm kind of in a brand new situation where everything's kind of started over. But that doesn't mean I don't get to game. And one of the things that worked out well for me specifically is that I knew people who were in Portland already or were in the area. I already knew Cohort Dawson, but Cohort, I already knew Tiffany and Steve, I already knew Sarah and Levi, I already knew the amazing Jonathan Liu. There were people here in Portland that I already knew who were gamers, but they kind of live all over the place, so coordinating something with a consistent schedule can be a bit of a bear. However, if we can get enough people and still run things on a consistent schedule, then even if some of us don't show up, it will work out in the long term. And eventually everybody's schedules can bend to accommodate it, and it'll become a permanent thing. I just haven't put a lot of effort into making that happen yet. So that's something that I'm going to have to look at. The game stores in this area are really, really good. Cloud Cap is a fantastic little game store that caters more towards gateway level gamers. And it has a little bit of play space, not a ton, but a little bit of play space. So we could play there, but I think their open board game nights are Friday nights, which not everybody wants to do a Friday night game night. Then there's Rainy Day Games, which also a fantastic store, really good place to buy things, does not have a large play area, has a very set schedule with where everything is. I haven't looked at exactly where their stuff happens yet. I know that Thursday nights, well, 2 Thursday nights a week are design nights. They're fresh games nights that they play prototypes and stuff like that, and that's been a great big help. A lot of progress was made on Fire in the Library and some of my other games, just simply because of that being available in the area. I haven't been to Guardian Games yet. I've been told that anything you ever want to purchase is there. They have a weird organization system. They have a lot of room, but the room is often taken up by major tournaments and events like that. Because they have room, major tournaments and stuff are held there. There's the Portland Game Store. There's a whole bunch of other tinier game stores that are mostly little magic dens scattered about. I just need to pick a routine, establish it, and then start making it happen. And all of these other wonderful gamers and these wonderful people that I know will show up or they won't. I'll meet new people or I won't. And if I do it with enough regularity and enough routine that people know that they can count on it happening, then I can establish a new game group here as well. And who knows, maybe all of the wonderful individuals that I already know won't even end up being part of my game group once it's fully established. They'll be, guest stars, which is fine because they're all stars, and I love gaming with all of them. So, that would be a great way for things to go. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. I don't have a specific answer for what you should do, but I do think that routine is very important. I do think that establishing consistency is very, very important. If people know that you're going to show up on the same night every week, and you always do with consistency, then there's more of a chance that eventually over time that will turn into something. Being clear what you want to play, and at the same time being willing to play things as a compromise for what other people want to play. Yes, all of us have piles of games that we would like to play. Ideally, we would play one of my games, we would play one of the next person's games, one of the next person's games, and this would not even necessarily be related to prototypes. I'm just talking games that you own. If I put forward my copy of Clank in Space as what I want to play this week, maybe we play someone else's copy of, I don't know, just any other game. Let it move around and let everybody participate in who chooses the games. I mean, the other option is everybody comes to my house and we just play whatever we want. The advantage for them is that they don't have to spend any money. The disadvantage is that they have to come to my house. And I don't know how many interruptions there will be or what all will be going on with that. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here. I hope this video was at least interesting, if not informative. And, if you guys have any tips for getting game groups started, or for long distance moves, like if you move to a whole new area, how do you look for game stores or other gamers or new groups? What are your tips and tricks? I'd love to see that too. But anyway, Bearded Rogue out.